Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Just its name alone conveys a sense of the epic that is contained within its 47 hours of runtime. A political drama amidst the backdrop of interstellar combat with larger-than-life characters and interweaving plot threads, this near-decade-spanning OVA is still regarded by many as one of the greatest anime series of all time. There are plenty of individual elements that can be praised, but the one that comes into sharpest focus as I've considered what makes this classic so different from many of the other ones covered in this anthology is how the experience of watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes is almost like experiencing the historical record. For a show based in the far future with space battles, the tone of the story feels grounded and deliberate, far from its exciting, adventurous contemporaries. And that contrast isn't just to stand out from the pack, but rather reinforces the major takeaways of the story, which we'll be taking a look at as we explore the importance of the narrator and the score. Narration has a somewhat unfair negative public opinion when used in audiovisual mediums, usually being decried for providing nothing of substance and for dragging out runtime. But nothing could be further from the case in Legend of the Galactic Heroes. The voice of Yusaku Yara is necessary to make sure that the audience is up to speed. In a cast of hundreds of characters, being reminded of their relations is a blessing, especially if they haven't been seen for a dozen plus episodes and to re-establish their relevancy to the plot. It also helps in establishing emotional tone through foreshadowing and signposting important details for the audience to keep their eyes out for. For such a long-running epic, a narrator is almost necessary just to keep us on track. But the narrator also adds to the historical nature of the work. The narrated transitions that tell us how events intersect and the reading into characters' emotional states as though they wrote down what they were thinking give it a documentary/historical reenactment feel that would otherwise be lacking. But even more importantly is how the narrator adds information about characters to provide different viewpoints and characterize them as more than mere cogs in the story. Heydrich Lang is by all accounts within the narrative a bad guy, head of the secret police and killing innocents or people against the Golden Baum regime. A seemingly one-dimensional character who serves primarily to show how the Lowengram dynasty could fall to the same problems as what it replaced, and to highlight the clever and manipulative nature of Adrian Rubinsky. But the narrator adds depth to the man by declaring that he donated most of his income that didn't go towards supporting his family to charities, and that he was beloved by his wife, children, and members of his community. This presents questions about the nature of history and its tendency to focus on actions above all else, the duality of man, and relative morality. It's a small moment, but one that perfectly captures the role of the narrator from a structural perspective, and how an element that was included to ease navigating the world fundamentally changes our engagement with the work. But in my opinion, the largest factor in achieving the historical tone of Legend of the Galactic Heroes production side comes from its score. Imagine for a second that this tune was used in the Battle of Amritsar. While that's a great track full of excitement and adventure, it's a complete tonal mismatch for the slow, tactical battles that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is full of. The decision to use famous and recognizable classics, stuff like Bolero and New World Symphony, works by Mozart and Beethoven as the score for this epic are fitting in part because they are timeless. Once you hear the orchestration, you are almost instantly pulled into a historical frame of mind because we associate those kinds of tracks, that type of instrumentation, towards the past. Their accompaniment with this story makes clear how the events of history remain and reverberate to the far future, still as relevant as the day they were first made. These long battles that take multiple episodes to complete, being given orchestrations that in some case are longer than their episode's runtime, don't feel like they're running through track after track, because as the music evolves through each movement, it feels fresh and as though the battlefield and situation is developing alongside the music. I have to give special note, of course, to the original compositions, that not only hold their own in the score, but in some ways steal the show. Valkyrie Ha takes all the right notes from other national anthems, and the other original themes aren't half bad either. It is self-evident to say that the music influences the tone of the work, but I'd be remiss to not state it. Especially since the re-release, the new thesis has been using an original score, and while it's not without its charms at moments, its music is much more modern in its orchestration. You wouldn't confuse it for Brahms. and is more fitting for the high-energy combat scenes that Production IG has been promoting with this new coat of paint. But we should take a look at what's being lost, and unfortunately that historical record element that was made so clear by the use of classical symphonies is one of them. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is an epic that has stood the test of time in part because its tonal focus on feeling like history has enabled it to fall seamlessly into the past. And maybe, because of that, this classic series still feels like a must-watch, an epic portraying the futuristic history of a conquest in the Sea of Stars.